Hello everyone. I want to take a moment to create a video that's going to show you exactly step by step how to format your newly typed research project. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I want this paper formatted. These are not optional directions. You need to make sure that you follow this very closely. Just go step by step, just as I'm going to do, and you shouldn't have any issues. At the end, you want to make sure that your paper looks just like what I have created, okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at this. If you've typed your paper up, I'm just going to guess. Most of the time, Google defaults to Arial font 11-point size. I don't want either of those things. So what I'm going to do is go through and select the entirety of what I've typed, and I'm going to change my font to Times New Roman. This is required. Okay, I don't want any other font. Times New Roman. Now the next thing, I don't want 11-point font. I don't want anything, I want 12-point font. I don't want anything larger than that or smaller than that. I want 12-point font. So Times New Roman, 12-point font. Okay. Now, since we already have this selected, we might as well take advantage of that and go ahead and set up our line spacing as well. If you look up here, yours may look a little bit different than mine, but on Google Docs, you have a formatting bar up here. And if you look usually to the right of this part right here that gives you the alignment buttons, if you look right here, you usually will have three lines with an up and down arrow, and it will usually say in the little drop text there, line spacing. And so if you click on that, it will give us this drop panel of different choices to alternate our line spacing. The line spacing that I want for this paper, and again, this is MLA format, is double space. So once you have everything selected, if you just click double spacing, you can see what that does. It opens up the text and gives me a little bit of space in between there so that I, as your teacher, can go through and make little notes and comments, where needed. And so that is a requirement of MLA format, which this entire paper is based around. And so you just need to make sure that you have yours double spaced. Sometimes students think that double spacing means like hitting enter between paragraphs, hitting enter twice, or they think that it means like hitting enter between lines or whatever. That's not what it means at all. What it means is selecting your text and then having the computer automatically increase the spacing between the lines for you. So that's what I want you to do. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do, a lot of you, when you type, you may not necessarily automatically indent your paragraphs like you're supposed to. And so we got to make sure that we do that, because indenting paragraphs is, again, another requirement of MLA. So make sure that you're doing that. Now, there is a way that you can do it with like indenting like this. This is actually the proper way, is to move these little bars up here at the top on the ruler. I'm actually not going to have you do it that way unless you know how, and that's what you would prefer to do. The easiest thing for me to tell you is to just hit tab, like select right in front of this text and just hit tab. Okay, and you can see that these days on modern day word processors, this actually goes ahead and it does it for you. It just goes ahead and assumes that that's what you're doing. You're trying to write a paragraph, and so you want to indent, and so it just kind of takes care of that for you. Now, if you do it that way to begin with, it should automatically kind of take care of that for you. But if it doesn't, you'll see that I've already gone through and I've already indented mine just to save time in this video. But I want to make sure that you know that every single one of your paragraphs at the start of it is indented. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do, we need to actually add our heading information, not header information. That's different. If I click like this, it opens this little panel right here, and it gives me the option to add in a header. I don't want that. The header, when you put in a header, it actually adds it to every single page of your paper. And so I don't want that. I only want this information to be at the top, the heading of the paper. So we're going to hit enter one time. and we're going to backspace because we don't want this indented. Our font should stay the same. It looks like it has Times New Roman 12-point font. It looks like we should still be double spaced, and we are. So the very first thing we're going to type is the name. And so since I wrote this paper, I'm going to write my name. Okay. Now I'm going to hit enter one time. And since you're turning this paper into me, you're going to actually write my name here. Just write Mr. Hall, just like that. Hit enter one time, and we're going to type the name of the class. It's English 2. If you would like, you can put the block as well. That can be helpful. We're going to hit enter one time. And now we're going to enter the date in MLA style. So the date that I'm making this video is the 15th. And it's February. It's 2018. So day, month, year, just like that. Okay. I'm going to hit enter one time. And now I'm going to insert a title. Now, the title is another required part of this paper's format. I expect it to be a creative title as well, meaning, like, for instance, my paper is about urban sprawl. So I'm not going to simply just title it urban sprawl. Just like if you wrote a paper about malaria or something, you're not going to title it malaria. Like, I want it to have a little bit of a creative nature to it. So just think about what could you possibly title your paper. Okay. Now, to do this, I'm going to center my cursor just like this. And I'm not going to make it fancy. I'm not going to make it enormous. I'm not going to even bold it or highlight it or anything like that. I'm just going to type it as is in the center of the paper. Now, I need to think about what would be a creative paper title. Now, for me, if you've read this paper, if you've read through it, then you know in my part C, the name of the program that I came up with is Slow the Sprawl, because my topic is urban sprawl. So that's sort of the goal of my paper. When I talked about my program, it would be all about slowing the growth of urban sprawl. So I think that's what I'm going to title my paper. And so I'm just going to type it right here. Okay, just like that. And that's all there is to it. There's nothing fancy about it. There's no bolding or anything like that for this part. Okay. Now, we're almost done with our formatting. Just a couple more steps, and then we're through with the formatting of the paper itself. So what I would like is section labels. And this will just help me as I grade your paper. So these aren't hard to add at all. So let's just go through and do that. So I'm going to hit enter one time, backspace. I am going to use bold text for this, and I'm going to label part A. Now notice I haven't labeled the intro. It's kind of unnecessary because the intro is the first paragraph in the paper. So, it doesn't really need to be labeled. But part A, I've got my label here for that. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to type. I'm going to bold this just to make it a little bit easier to see. Part B. Okay. So if you've already guessed it, I'm going to do the same thing here. Only I'm going to type part C. And then lastly, I'm going to come down here. I'm going to type conclusion. Okay. Now, all of this is labeled, and so it just makes it a little bit easier for me to read. If you would like, it could also be helpful to add in a page number, but I'm not really going to require it for this. It's not really all that necessary, but it could be helpful as well if you want to do that. They're easy to add. Like, I can just go right here, header number, page number, and I can set it exactly how I want it to look. But other than that, that's all there is to it. Thank you.